Okay, hey everybody, welcome to my little interview series that I'm having with folks that are running for City Council, and we'll also have some of our mayoral candidates for both Idaho Falls and for Ammon. I am Paul Baker, I'm the CEO for the Chamber of Commerce here, and I'm with Brandon Lee, who's running for Seat 2, the City Council. And I guess I should start off that I know Brandon. We coached soccer together for a bit, and literally one of the first things I did when I moved here was get involved in coaching soccer, and Brandon was kind enough to let me help out. So good to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So let's start off with just tell us a little bit about why you want to run for City Council.
It's a great question. I obviously put a lot of thought into that because being a council member, it's a huge time commitment. And I know that our current council, they do an amazing job, and they're very thoughtful and put in a lot of time to that role, and they take it very serious. So for me, ultimately it came down to the fact that I love our city. I love Idaho Falls. Born and raised here, and I love what it has become, and I want to be able to have it continue to be a place that my kids are excited to come back home to and raise their families in the future. Yeah. And so I think that takes real leadership to ensure that we are continued to go into a future that where we have a community that people love and admire and want to continue to be a part of.
Yeah, love that. And I guess like the other kind of follow-up to that really is, so this is an open seat.
It is.
It's a pretty heavy docket of people that are all vying for that city council seat. So what would you say is the one or two things that kind of separates you from everyone else in that big crowd of people?
Well, I think everyone first I'd say that's just one other example of what a great place our city is. When you've got 7 people who all have great ideas for how our community should be run as we move forward, right? They all have great ideas. I certainly don't claim to have the monopoly on great ideas. But what I would say is, as I look at kind of my background, you'll see that I'm a person who's a builder, who's been engaged and active in our community for a long, long time. I've been on the Parks and Rec Commission for the last 7 years, where we have helped advise the City Council on critical issues, including the water tower, which has been a recent thing. Yeah. You may have heard of that. I've been on the committee to help restore Funland. I've been on the committee that help negotiate and do the project for the frontier fields for Idaho Falls High School.
Right.
I recently, last year, I was elected to be a PCO for the Bonneville, for the BCRCC, and I've been a coach, as you mentioned, in youth sports really for almost 20 years now. Yeah. And so I truly am a builder. I have a record of that. That notion comes even into my professional employment as a real estate developer on the commercial side of things. I've worked with with city councils really across the country when I was with Target Corporation doing land acquisition and site selection for them, and saw many communities and city councils, and saw the ones that were let me take a step back. I feel like I was able to pick up really best practices and some gold nuggets from communities around the country who I felt handled growth in a very smart and strategic way. Yeah. So I saw how it was done well, and saw when it was just left to just whatever happens. Yeah. And so I think that background has really put me into a position where I feel like I'm a very solution-oriented leader. Mm-hmm. And I expect challenges, and I welcome them. I know they're going to be there, but I look at the challenges that are ahead of us for Idaho Falls, and to me, they're exciting challenges. It could be the opposite. We could be in a spot where employment is leaving, right? Mm-hmm. Employers are leaving, where no one can sell their homes, and people are looking to get out of Dodge. And that's just not what we have here. It's the opposite, where people recognize we have an amazing place. Mm-hmm. We have an amazing set of amenities and parks. We have, and just our community as a whole, it's just a great community, and people want to be a part of that. So I recognize why people want to come in. Yeah. I feel like we can't be and shouldn't be afraid of growth. We should be welcoming those people into our community, showing them this is why Idaho Falls is great. Mm-hmm. And as we plan purposefully and strategically, make good decisions based on good data, right, then it's going to continue to be an amazing place into the future.
Yeah. So I love that you touched on the strategic growth. I hear that a lot,
Yeah.
and I've seen a lot of other folks that are running for city council kind of use that terminology. But I do think that some folks don't truly understand what it's going to take to really strategically and smartly curate the growth that we have here in the right way. So I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on what that actually means in the kind of the detailed day-to-day
Yeah.
of what to expect from someone like yourself with a development background, looking at infrastructure, looking at real estate. How do you plan strategically?
So for me, I think it's really about the creation of what we'll call a strategic growth model. Okay, so as we've met with Brian Powell, Lisa Burtonshaw and I both have met with Brian Powell, and we've discussed this exact notion, right? Mm-hmm. We have to recognize that the city of Idaho Falls in and of itself is not an island. And so the decisions that we make impact our other community members, those in the county, those in the city of Ammon, Yukon, Iona, etc., mm-hmm. right? And vice versa. The decisions that all those groups are making, they're not done in silos, and we're all impacting each other. And so each group has all these information and these data sets, but they're largely not being shared or put together in a way that when decisions are being made, we can understand, oh, this is what Ammon is doing right now with roads, for example, and maybe road closures. It could be as simple as that, yep. Right? And oh, here's a new school that Ammon is planning on bringing in District 93, and oh, here's what District 91 is doing with schools and where the growth is, and here's where the next set that we're expecting for single-family homes to be built, and here's the next for multifamily, and so as you look at all these data sets and look at them together all as one, maybe it's a decision regarding a piece of ground that needs to be annexed in or is requesting annexation. Yeah. Well, what are they asking for, and does that make sense based on what currently surrounds it? What's the economic impact to that? What is it going to cost the city long term? What is it going to cost the taxpayers to maintain those new mm-hmm. utility lines and new power lines and roads, et cetera, et cetera? Yeah. So I feel like it's getting the information, being able to make a decision, right? Because every decision I think that a council member makes has trade-offs, and you have to understand what those trade-offs are. Mm-hmm. And if you're looking at it in just a silo and just one set of information, I think you're shortchanging what the potential answer could be because you're not looking at all the impacts.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
It makes sense to me. So I guess I'm going to try and simplify this a little bit. So typically, listening to what you're saying, and what I've observed too, is that historically, both cities have kind of worked siloed. The county has kind of worked siloed in certain ways, but there could be some joined up thinking, sharing of information, recognizing that one decision that Ammon makes might impact Idaho Falls, recognize that one decision that Idaho Falls makes might impact the county, and vice versa.
Absolutely.
And actually get some good folks around the table. So hearing you talking to Brian, talking with Lisa, fills me with a sense of, okay, great, we've got some collective potential here. Because I too, in the role that I sit, I see this as an entire ecosystem, not necessarily 100%. Just one Idaho Falls ecosystem, 100%. One Ammon ecosystem.
We are one big community.
Yeah.
Idaho Falls happens to be the hub, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at it in total, we have almost 300,000 people that live within an hour of the city, mm-hmm. right? And they come into the city for a lot of those daily needs. And needs that aren't provided,
yeah.
Elsewhere.
Yeah.
And so as a city, we also have to recognize that, mm-hmm. That again, those decisions, they don't just impact our little bucket and our little sandbox.
Yeah, that's so true. I guess the one thing that comes with that when people express their concerns about growth, sure. is the threat of losing the sense of identity and sense of community. So I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on how do we manage growth but don't lose our sense of community and identity.
So that's a great question and not an easy one, right? You can say, little snippets and sound bites that make people, feel good, but I think that it truly, that to me, that is something that occurs when decision by decision is being made at the council level with an understanding and a recognition of what are the trade-offs and what are the impacts. Mm-hmm. And when you think about the things that make us great, right? how do we continue to ensure that those things remain? So for me, coming from truly on the Parks and Rec side and youth sports, I recognize, to me, that's an important part of our community, right? So it would be ensuring that as we grow as a community, that we continue to have the same ability to offer those amenities to residents even as we grow, right? So, there's numbers that have been shared that over the next 5 years, in order to maintain the same level of offering of parks to our residents, that as we grow, we're going to need another 55 acres of parks. Well, if people haven't recognized that that is truly a need, right, then, and they're not planning for it, right, then we're going to end up in a, in a situation where all of a sudden people are going to feel like, man, it's just not fun to go to the parks anymore.
Right.
They're too crowded. They're too this. They're too that. Right. We don't have enough for our user groups.
Yeah.
And so you have to be. That's just as an example to me. Is you have to be thinking about, okay, what are the amenities or the offerings or what is it about our community that we like today that we have to ensure we continue to offer, right, at a level so that it doesn't feel like we've downgraded.
Right.
And I think with an increasing tax base through growth, we're going to be able to do that and then some.
Yeah, I think so. To kind of elaborate a little bit on the point you made about parks, that folks also don't understand that there's actually a metric to designing cities in terms of acre per 1,000 people. And so the state of Idaho is a little bit below the national average, is about 12 acres per 1,000. We're about 8 or 9. And so when we're seeing a city grow the way it's growing, it's good to think about what is the amount of Parks and Rec acreage to a certain bucket of people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people, whatever it might be, so that you can plan strategically and think about, okay, here's where this community is growing. We need to make sure that there's some park and recreational component to it. I guess that lines up with your strategic thinking.
Exactly.
I guess the follow-up to that then is there's only certain legal limitations that a city council would have when it comes to what an individual could do with their property.
Yes.
There also seems to be a misunderstanding that the city can just kind of just decide who can do with whatever they're doing with their property. The city gets to decide.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to kind of talk a little bit about where your thoughts are on that.
I appreciate that question. I think that I love that. I agree with you that we have obviously we got a lot of smart people in our community, but and I don't expect everyone to understand, well, what is exactly can and cannot a city council member or a mayor do. But I think it's important to just remember, right, that we live in, thankfully, right, we live in a place that isn't governed by a dictator or by a monarch. Right. We can't be king and queen for a day and just say, you're going to do this and I don't care what your property rights are. Yep. We have to remember and recognize that every landowner, whether you're in the city or the county, you have rights that are attached to your property as they are today, right? Imagine if our county commissioners went to a farmer today and said, you know what, we think as the government, we don't need any more potatoes, you need to grow corn.
Right.
I don't know that would go over very well. Yeah. And I think that it's, we have to recognize that really that's the same thing when you hear people trying to tell other property owners, well, you no longer can do that because we think we have too much of this product or too much of this. We live in a free market economy, and that's what I love about it. Yeah. Ultimately, what I've seen over time is that if there is ever need for a correction one way or another for a particular asset class, the free market economy, it usually levels it out.
It sure does.
And things are in place that enable those market forces to work. And if we have too much multifamily, then ultimately things will change. Those one or two things will happen. Either rents will go down, which people would love, right? Or those assets change into a different type of format. Maybe they become condominiums, and they become something that can be, again, purchased for fee title, right? So things change in the market in order to, again, equalize those the supply and demand. Yeah. So I think it is important to understand that city council can't come in and just take away people's property rights in the city. Yeah. I think I come back to the strategic word, though, as the city grows through annexation, they can be very purposeful on what is the best use for this property as it comes in, still trying to balance those trade-offs of property rights and what does this person who owns the property, what are they trying to do, and how does what they're trying to do fit within the comprehensive plan of the city and the overall trajectory.
Yeah, I love that. So one of the things that's also happening similar to Ammon is that there's a new mayor is going to be elected, and so I'd love to kind of just get your thoughts on where you see your role as a potential city council person and the role of the mayor, and what the mayor should or shouldn't or couldn't or could do versus what you could do.
That's a good question. I think that clearly, this is my opinion, this is just me speaking, right, is that they obviously have to work together and there has to be some cohesion, right? I think that the vision, right, starts with the top, which would be the mayor, and that as the council forms priorities, hopefully it is done in a cohesive way and a collaborative way with the mayor, so that the city is marching forward in a direction that, again, that leadership as a whole can say this is the direction we want to go. And that doesn't mean that every vote is going to be, 6-0. That's not what I'm saying at all. As I look at our current council, I've been to several meetings where they have had differing votes. Sometimes they're 3-3, and you even need the mayor to come in and be the tiebreaker. But I think that once a decision is made, and this is what I admire truly about our current council, is once a decision is made, even if it's not going in the direction that maybe they had voted for, they support the direction, right? They're not trying to be an antagonist and create and really destroy, I think, the feeling of a cohesive council that can move forward in a direction of positivity. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I guess I guess how important would you say it would be then for people to, when they're considering voting for someone that's running for city council or voting for someone that's running for mayor, to consider the two things, because that's kind of what's happening right now, is that we have seats open for election for city council and we have a seat open for mayor. But when we're looking at what's best for the community, is it just think about who would be the best mayor, or just think about who would be the best city council person, or is it who is going to work best together to achieve the things that we want to achieve for this area?
That's a good question. I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. I feel like for both, whether it's the mayor or the city council, right, is understanding kind of, where does that candidate sit on important issues? What is their platform? What's the ability for them to execute their platform? Are they trying to sell an issue that's really like putting root beer in drinking fountains, right? Back when you were in 6th grade and you had a kid running for class president that was making promises that you knew could never happen, right? But they sound great, right? Yeah. But so, understanding, right, and this comes back to your earlier question, is what are the responsibilities of a mayor and a council, right? And who do you think can go and execute on a vision that aligns with you and your vision of where you think that the city should go? Yeah. I think that track records are extremely important. I think people can, say a lot of great sound bites, but I think it's really important to look at track records. Who's been a part of our community, who loves our community, who's demonstrated it and been here for a long time and has a great, again, I come back to that word of track record, of already showing and demonstrating that they love our community, and they've already shown it, and they're going to continue to do so. Yeah.
And I appreciate that, and I kind of, I'm a new person that's living here now, 4 years, whatever it is. I think it's wise, and I've definitely, especially for this organization that's 120 years old, it's definitely wise to consider the history of something that can help inform you to what the future should be. And the only way you can do that is by utilizing people who are truly integrated into the community and that understand how the pulse and the heartbeat of something.
I think so. Yeah.
And so and that's what I love about this town too, is that as someone that's moved in, I definitely have felt that embrace of people to want to be a part of this community, so I love that.
And I love too, right? I look at what you've done over the last 4 years, and it's an incredible amount of gift. What I'd say, you've given a huge gift back to our community by being here and by doing all the things, seeing where, hey, this could be done a little bit better, this could be done a little bit better,
Sure.
and then just going and doing exactly that. And we need more. We need more of that.
Yeah, I would love to have a little Irish quarter, not just the Celts, no, I'm joking. Okay, so I'm loving what I'm hearing so far and kind of your approach to things, and especially and I say that not from a personal perspective, but also purely from a Chamber of Commerce perspective, where we advocate for our business community, especially, and want to see folks consider the ecosystem as a whole piece versus just one, but also thinking about how do we find ways to stay attractive so we can still be like a magnet to people to come, but we're attracting the jobs that we want created, and we're attracting the expertise and the talent to come with it, not just the job side of it, but also the education side of it. So I'd love to just get your thoughts on what you think we could do in terms of the Idaho Falls area to help continue that attraction, while also bringing in the right level of expertise and the right talent and folks that would align with our principles that we have here in Idaho Falls.
So my answer to that, some of that goes well beyond what I'd say is just kind of the standard role of a city councilman, but I do think that the partnership, and it comes back to collaboration, right, and being an advocate for the needed changes, whether it's at the city level or elsewhere. I look at, particularly if we come back to our schools, I'd love to see a new school be built for District 91. I was on the committee for 3 different attempts to try to get a high school bond passed, and we have a statute that requires us to obtain a 66 and 2/3 majority.
Yeah.
And I think that the way that the funding mechanisms are set up for the state of Idaho right now are going to make that difficult anywhere in the state, not just here, to pass a bond given the current environments of construction costs and interest rates. And so I think that that's something where cities and school districts and state legislatures truly need to work together to figure out a more creative solution, so that we don't get stuck in a situation again 10, 15 years down the road where we look back and say, oh, I wish we could have done something a little different, because I feel like we're going to be getting closer and closer to that. So I come back, that is one issue, right, that I look at, and I think that any issue like that takes collaboration across platforms. And so to me, it really is being able to say, who do we need to have sitting at the table to be able to having these discussions, and it is going to involve, I think, all those levels. Whether it's school board members, state legislators, city council members, mayors. Sometimes you do need all those people in the room to sit and talk about decisions and try to advocate for positions that are best for the community as a whole. And I know that's a lot of words, but I really do feel that that's what it takes.
Appreciate that. So just to kind of wrap things up, Brandon, if there's a couple of things that you would like for people to know about you, why they should vote for you, why they should get out and vote. Also, I'd love to kind of get those thoughts and before we kind of wrap this up.
Thank you for that opportunity. I think for me, I come back to just engagement and being engaged within our city, and I think that the easiest way for someone to show that they're engaged is to educate themselves on the issues that are at hand. What are the candidates talking about, and who do you align with? And then go and vote. Cast your vote based on who do you align with? Who do you think is going to best represent you on your local issues? I feel like that's one of the reasons I love city council, is I think it's the most grassroots level that you can get, and one of the most impactful positions, I guess, if you will, that a quote unquote a politician would have, right, in terms of your day-to-day life, right? It's very different than voting for the President of the United States or a U.S. Senator, where decisions are being made on policy that don't impact perhaps your commute to work on a daily basis. Those kind of day-to-day things that we get to address on a local level to really try to improve the lives of our community.
Well, great. Well, Brandon, thank you so very much for being with me today and sort of spending some time so we can discuss some really cool, important things. And I wish you all the best in your campaign.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Cool.